All right, so the question is, how do you secure your online cloud application in the cloud? Specifically, obviously a big topic and one that we focus on considerably, but when we think about cloud security, we're going to break this down into one area today, and that has to do with API safeguards. And so specifically, when you are building technology, you will create application interfaces so that the computers can talk, basically. And from a business perspective, this is a way of getting kind of real efficient communication and handoff of data, and allow you to make lots of little things that then connect and talk. Now that's ideal. So if you're working on a product and you're building and launching a business, you want to create lots of little small things that talk to each other. The reason is you can fix that one small thing with one team while the other stuff is all operating and looking great. It's an easy way to distribute out the work. It's a lot. You can do lots of quick updates and improvements, and it's really a way that doesn't restrict you in where you run it. Right. So if you want to run it on Amazon, you run it Azure, run it on your desktop. All those things will work great. So we're going to build lots of small pieces, if you will, immutable architectures, and we're going to use APIs to talk between the different systems. Now, how do you secure and safeguard the APIs in the cloud in this example? Now, specifically, first thing we're going to look at is we want to make sure that we cover the basics. So Web 2.0, right? We want to limit the access to it. You want to make sure you have good keys. Make sure that if you're trying to limit the data that's getting delivered to the API or authenticating, authorizing, you need all that. So, go online and get the standard Web 2.0, like limit the calls, make sure you control the validation of input, make sure you do input checking so that if you were expecting a number and they sent you a letter, your application doesn't blow up. So real basics. So we're not going to cover those basics. You need to have those, and those will get that done. But there's another level that you need to think about that has emerged in the fully enabled connected environments, and as it relates especially to things like Alexa and other online smart intelligence systems. And that is, what is the context of the information and what are you using it with? So specifically, I want you to think about and break down what type of information am I collecting and how is that information valuable to somebody else at scale. So, for instance, if you were collecting people details, like something about me, right? Height, hair color, all the things, and you push it to the API, great. Can other people pull that information? You might say, well, of course, that's what my API is designed to do. But do you want somebody, one person, or a concerted effort, an orchestrated effort to do this for all of your users in your system? Probably not. So you need to think about what are these scenarios and this type of data and how it will be used. So I want you to think about, one, what is the type of data I'm putting in? It's not going to fall into the classic, oh, well, this is obviously government data or it's a security number, so therefore we're going to save it. It's not going to be that easy. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's going to be more nuanced, and more likely it's going to be more towards the bias of it needing safety and protection than not. So for instance, if you have sensors that are thermostats in all the buildings in the world, right, that data coming in is valuable to you, right? Because you can use that information to do analytics, tracking, trending. In the energy markets, you could use it to help them in pricing based off of time and attention in those environments. But also, it gives a feedback mechanism too as to the behaviors, the activity levels in those buildings. So you need to think about, what is the data you are receiving? What is the magnitude of which you would allow the data to be, one, updated, and two, downloaded or called to be used? If you can think about those two different scenarios and then break down how your API interacts, you actually will get a really rich and smart engagement model, not only for the business, right? Because we want to make sure that we're not, sending gobs of data, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're maximizing the data that we do have. From a business perspective, I work with lots of teams where we focus on what is the utility of this information. We're going to send it, we're going to pay for those bits and bytes, we're going to pay for the storage, and we're paying for the management ever forward, right? So we really want to make sure that which we collect is valuable and we can apply it and maybe repeatedly use it and benefit, equal and or greater to the risk and the cost of holding it. So you got to think about those different areas for your data and your API, but specifically think about the context of what type of data we're putting in, how are we pulling it out, and what's the volume of write and overwrite. I think if you think about it from that perspective, you will see your APIs have immense value, and just things you can do at scale to improve them. These thoughts will help you have a practical cybersecurity religion and business operation beyond just the block and tackle, right? The block and tackle of, manage the inputs and do Web 2.0 and owasp and all that. You need that, right? You need your application not to have bugs in it, right? So run the scanners, you need that. But I want you to think beyond that. Now your utility. Let's assume we've done everything right, and now what? And then what? And I think you really see the future. And what's interesting is that when I have these conversations with teams, I actually discover for myself and we as a team additional product opportunities, frankly, right? Because if now we're looking at the data, we're kind of playing with it a little bit. We're starting to see what are additional utilities, maybe other markets, and maybe just better benefits for our customers. So pretty exciting. Little block and tackle. When you're thinking about APIs, let's say you're using Amazon Lambda or another microservice on a platform where they provide everything up to the API, think about that they are already providing at least privilege in a highest secure setup. So your job will be more to focus on the context and the data, less about trying to toss in web app firewalls and application gateways and those things. You need to have leading practice, and we need to make sure we cover it, but just recognize if you're using somebody else's API service, then there is a lift where they're owning some of that responsibility. And so I think that's an opportunity for you to build on there and then get that next level benefit. So that's how you secure APIs in the cloud beyond the block and tackle. So one, block and tackle is configure your API securely, run the scanners, remove the basic bugs out of the code. Two, when you're hosting it on a cloud service provider, make sure you understand what they're doing for you and what you're responsible for, right? So if you're supposed to turn on a firewall, you should turn on a firewall. Don't wait for them to do it for you because they won't. Tune the API so you get alerts when anything hits a certain threshold of behavior. Maybe it's volume, maybe it's read writes, maybe it's number of calls from a single source, or maybe it's even just cost, right? Maybe you're like, hey, tell me when I hit $10,000 or $50,000, right? So that way you at least have a kind of a read in a sense as to what's happening in your API. Then, once you've gotten the code healthy and you've got operational limits in place, not really limits, but maybe notices to then become limits based off of velocity of an increase, then I want you to think about the next level stuff, right? So that is input validation, classic OWASP 2.0 kind of tactics and methods on the application connection component. Make sure your whatever's connecting in, you've got a way of authenticating in a healthy way, something that you can manage at scale, and then really focus on the context. Focus on the context of the data, focus how you play it together, and I think if you do all those things, you're going to see a lot of immense benefit. But do bring in product teams when you're going through the context, because there is potential for really interesting opportunities if you apply it. That's it. Let me know what you think. Share your thoughts.